Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host, and we're glad to have you back listening. If you wouldn't mind, if you haven't already done so, is please subscribe to the podcast. It's on 30 different channels, including the one you're listening to right now. If you could do that, that's awesome. It actually helps things in the world of podcasts. If you could do that, that'd be great. And while you're out there, go visit globalinvestoragent.com. This is where you'll find real estate agents that we train to work with you and I, the investors, and they're certified. It's the only place they can get the certification. And it's not just a stick-on thing. These guys are not your typical agents. They're serious. They often invest themselves. They know how to identify, analyze, and negotiate on and off-market deals for you and I. Okay, 37 states also. So grab one of those guys. And if you are a real estate agent, we know what the market's like because we're in it all the time. We know the volume's down to an average of 1.89 transactions per year per agent. That's ridiculous. Okay, don't sit there and do that. We average 4 transactions per investor client. Okay, just imagine if you had 12 investors. It's 48 transactions a year. Okay, way better than a traditional market. Once you know what you're doing, so make this part of your model. Don't struggle. Don't worry about just surviving. This is how you thrive, and you learn how to invest yourself. Okay, so just go to the website, click on Learn More. In any case, great guest today, guys. Mike Mannino, all the way from South Carolina via Michigan. So we'll explain that here in a little bit. But Mike, thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate. I've read everything about you, and I appreciate you taking your precious time to share with us some of your wisdom.
Gary, thank you very much for having me. And yes, certainly happy to be here.
Awesome. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could give people a little bit of background, a little bit of context that might explain why you moved from Michigan to South Carolina, but tied into the real estate, like how you got started, and then take us to where you are now, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I got started. I was blessed to be a teenager during the 2008 recession in Michigan, where it got hit really hard with the auto industry. My father was a contractor. He did beautiful kitchens with the cabinetries and $100,000 kitchens. He was like a master woodworker, and that all dried up. So to keep his guys busy, he actually bought some rentals in 2009 and 10 for laughable prices of like $15,000, $40,000. And he would have me during the summer months when I'm off of school, go in there for $10 an hour, and I would be fixing them up. So then I was kind of learning at 16 years old during the summer how to, do tile and drywall and painting and doing all the work. And that really got me excited about real estate because I would, my dad bought a house for like $15,000. I'm going in there. He's investing $20,000, and then now he's renting it out for $1,500 a month. And I'm like, okay, I can do some basic math here, and there's some money to be made in this real estate world. So then I worked at McDonald's, busboy, waited tables, very humble beginnings. We didn't have a ton of money growing up. And I saved up $14,500 in 2012. I got an FHA 3.5% down loan on a foreclosed property, and I was 19 years old, a year after high school. And I bought a foreclosure. It was a 3-bedroom house, 2-bath. And I was going in there the day of closing, Gary. I was in there and I'm cleaning blood off of the baseboards and this house that just needed, the worst foreclosure house you could imagine, right? And so I was blessed to move in there, and I did house hacking before I knew what it was. This is back 2012. I wasn't listening to podcasts, and my mortgage was $600 a month. I'm an intern for $8 an hour. I'm waiting tables and going to community college. And I had 2 other people I was waiting tables with pay $300 a month in rent each. So at 19 years old, I have my mortgage covered, and I'm building up equity. I'm fixing it up myself. And long story short, I sold it 3 years later 2.5 years later, and I was like 21 years old, I believe, for 147,000, and I paid 67,000 for it.
Nice.
So I walked away with like a $60,000 check in my hand at 21 years old.
New car. Oh, just kidding.
So, Gary, good question. Good statement. So I drove a 2004 classic Malibu. It was gold. It was only made in, I think, in 2 years, 2003 and 4. Is such a bad car. It had no horn and no AC. And instead of buying the Camaro that I wanted, I bought another foreclosed property.
Nice. Yeah. You know what? There's an age old lesson in all this, and you're the exact same age as my youngest son, by the way. And my oldest daughter, but had nothing to do with anything I was doing real estate wise, because she saw us leave in the morning, clean and shaved and all that, and come home at the end of the day covered in dirt and dust and paint and all kinds of stuff. But my son was like, he was into it, man. He was an entrepreneur like me. And he started working for me before he could drive. And then when he could drive, of course, he got the truck, which was a 2003 Toyota Tacoma 4-door 4-wheel drive. And so he loved that. And he started out just working for one of the crews I had. And by the time he graduated high school, he was running his own crew, and he was making more than the other guys. Um, and so he was a big car nut, and he had, I can go into all kinds of stories about the cars he's owned. But in any case, great lesson. But here's the big lesson I'm getting at is he was smart enough. He knew that he saw me, he watched me. I never went out and just bought a car, or I never just took the family to Mexico on vacation or Disney World. We did those things, but we bought a house first. And then and the kids were growing up hearing this stuff because they would say, or my wife would say, can we go to Mexico this year? And I would say, yep, got to go buy a house. Yep, got to go buy a house. So they heard that the whole time growing up. You want to buy a car, you go buy a house first. And the house would pay for the car. So what we would do is we'd buy a property, obviously below market value that we could do a lot of renovations, increase the value. And then I would pay cash for them. At the beginning, I couldn't do that. But over the next 3 or 4 properties when I got started, we ended up to pay cash for the properties, renovate them, then go get a brand new first mortgage on them, pay ourselves back, right? And then I would take a portion to go on vacation or buy the car or whatever. And then I never financed anything. But if I did, I always thought, well, I could buy a house, fix it up, rent it out, refinance it, use the excess capital, because I would get more than I paid for it, right? So I'd have excess capital coming back to me, use that as a down payment, and the monthly income on the property would pay any monthly payment. But I never did monthly payments. To this day, I don't finance anything. I know it sounds crazy because I'm probably missing on a lot, but I used to have, debt up to my eyeballs. And life's really good right now. I have no debt. And so I'm not saying everybody should do this. What I'm suggesting is when you first start out, go into debt, get the good debt, which is backed by an income producing asset, right? Later on, you'll have the option to either be in debt or not be in debt. On the other hand, I can lend money now, but I'm happy to do that. But and I didn't get there. I started off when I was 23 myself. And I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but that was a while ago. But let's go back to you though. So you got this first house and you house hacked it. And ironically, my first property in January 1986, my college roommate and I bought it for 63,000, and we
Wow.
rented out the other 2 bedrooms. We had a 4-bedroom ranch. So we house hacked. I never heard that term till about 5 years ago. All right. But that gave us the capital to go out and 2 years later buy other properties. We each bought another property, and the rest they say the history. But so you got that first property, then you bought the second one. Now, were
Yep.
these generally flips or were they rentals, or kind of tell us about that part of it?
Very good question about that. So I didn't buy a rental until my 40th something flip.
Mhm.
So I sold that house and I moved back home with mom and dad humbly for the next 2 years, after living out on my own and having this big check. And I just bought another house. We fixed it up, sold it. And then, and our business grew. I just threw all the money back into this. I needed a cash machine. My big why, is my dad. He is an amazing father, awesome guy. And he, like I said, did the hard work construction growing up. So my goal was to retire him for him to just do project managing, work 20 hours a week, and make $100,000 a year. He said, Mike, if I can make $100,000 with you a year flipping houses, and I'll do it. So that was my goal. I set out to myself, and we actually completed that goal in 2019, which was awesome. So now he works with us full time, and he drives his Tesla around looking at houses. So I'm very blessed. That's my biggest why. So I needed to create like a very heavy cash machine because I didn't want to have a job. I needed to retire my dad. So I started picking up rentals in 2020. Actually, I bought my first 6-unit apartment building up in Michigan.
Nice. Okay. Now, was that in the city limits of Detroit, or was it out, Plymouth, Ann Arbor, any of those places like that, or?
Good question. So my business is up in Michigan. I don't buy and never have bought in Detroit or Flint. So I buy in the middle, in between.
Yep.
There's probably an hour and a half of like the suburbs, and that's where we operate, and that's where I buy rentals. So very good question. It's very hard to evict even still today in those city limits right now.
Yeah, I know. But I know the road. I know I-75 well.
Okay, yeah.
So I think I told you before, I used to live in London, Ontario, and I crossed over at Sarnia, the Blue Water Bridge, instead of Windsor. But I crossed over up north, and because it's just easier and nicer. And it takes 75 south, and then take either the Ohio Turnpike east towards Pennsylvania, where I also lived, or south, head all the way down through where you are now, the Carolinas, and down to Florida. And I did that life for a lot of years. It was good living too. It was great. But so Michigan's awesome for anybody that's not familiar with Michigan. It's way, way more than what you see on the news. It's not just Detroit. It's a beautiful, amazing state. And Flint, for example, had a bad rap a while back because people thought they had quote unquote bad water. It wasn't the water, it was the pipes, right? And they've been replacing them. They got I think a government grant during the last administration for something like 10 million. I forget the article I read, but that's coming around. It's awesome. Whenever you have adversity like that, that's the opportunity. You look for the adversity, you go in when everybody else is going out, right? And you become part of the solution. So the 6-unit, tell us about that. Was it did you have to renovate that also to get it to marketability? Tell us about that project.
Yeah, so I bought that one, and I bought it with seller financing too. This is funny. So for your listeners, here's a tip. I bought it off of Facebook Marketplace. That's where I found the 6-unit apartment building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It's fun. For years we've bought. So we buy houses from different sources, like direct mail, everything. But one a year, I buy a house from Craigslist. As weird as it is, no one uses Craigslist anymore, but we still make $35,000 a year from it. So there's a tip. So the 6-unit, yep, I bought that property. We renovated it. I think the rents are all 1-bedrooms. They were probably $400 a month. And by the time we were done with them, we were achieving $800 to $900 a month in rent. Nice. So like really doubling them. And actually I just sold it this year. So kind of how that journey is, the nice thing is like learning a skill and becoming very good at it. So I am a good marketer because of my single family business. We've bought most of our houses off market, direct to seller, using those marketing strategies. And then I'm also have a construction business. Basically, we have 3 full-time crews now in our flipping business, and we do about 20 houses per year. So I'm really good at project managing, and I'm able to do it 750 miles away from where the projects are. So I use that same skill set of marketing and project managing, and I just put that toward multifamily, because that's what's going to provide me, because by the time I retire, Social Security won't be around. So that's going to provide me my retirement for me and my family, and that wealth building aspect of it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, you got the right idea. Now, obviously Michigan is a great market. I mean, there's so many beautiful cities and towns. You go out a half hour from Detroit, there's amazing, amazing neighborhoods, and you go further, way up at Traverse City. What a beautiful place, Yeah. But in any case, South Carolina also is, to me, now that I've been saying this, the cat's out of the bag. I called it a sleeper state. I mean, everybody was going to North Carolina, going to Georgia, going to Tennessee. Nobody was talking about South Carolina. Well, now people are talking about South Carolina. It's like the last place, as far as the pricing goes. You can, if you go inland a little bit up towards what we call upstate, go up 26, go past Columbia, up towards Spartanburg, Anderson, those areas, Greenwood. I mean, land is still cheap. There's developments going on up there. I mean, senior housing developments, but they're nice. They're individual homes on a lake with a golf course, and yet people aren't having to spend $1 million on a house. It's like half of that or less. I mean, it's just amazing what you can get down there, and it's a relatively low tax state. Everybody's pretty happy, and it's warm. I mean, you can go out in January in the afternoon and just wear a jacket, play golf, tennis, ride a bike, whatever you want. But have you started looking into those South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee, and is that on your radar screen or? Hi, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for participating in the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. Also wanted to let you know that the book Global Investor Agent is officially out in print and in Kindle on Amazon. You can get it by clicking on the link right here. If you are an agent, definitely grab yourself a copy. This book, guys, was not just written by me. I also included 8 other investor agents from around the country. And I didn't just handpick them. I literally opened it up to the entire audience. And it was first come, first serve. So you're going to get feedback from radio agents all the way up to top 25 team leaders, some on my team, some are not on my team, with valuable insight and instructions and guidance and actual checklist to follow to not just survive but thrive in this market. I know you're looking for that advantage, and this is it. By the way, if you are an investor, grab a copy for your agent, and for everybody, all profits from the sale of the book, Kindle and print, all go to the Healing House Foundation. 100%. Thank you for doing that too, guys. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah, so it is. So for the multifamily, we have 35 units up in actually North Carolina, outside of Greensboro. And Michigan's great, but if you look at the 2020, I think it was like maybe Redfin provided it. I think over 10,000 people, they had a 10,000 population decline, Michigan did. And a lot of the Midwest states after COVID, right? But states like North Carolina had 100,000 people increase. South Carolina, 80,000. Georgia, I think around 80,000. Well, Florida, 300,000. So look, yeah, Florida's crazy. But looking at that, I'm young enough to look at a 10-year time horizon, as you should when you're buying rentals. If this trend continues, like in North Carolina, what are rents going to be 10 years from now versus Michigan 10 years from now for the same, let's say same property, but just 2 different locations. So I'm betting now in other states where people are moving to.
Yeah. Well, that's good logic. By the way, it's a great website. It's called howmoneywalks.com, and definitely use it. Write it down. Everybody listening, write that down. Howmoneywalks.com. And what it does is it uses public information from the IRS. It's based on IRS tax filings, and it doesn't track the movement of people. It tracks the movement of money. And you can see, clearly, I know it's obvious because if you just read between the lines and you'll see what's happening. But, the Northeast, the Rust Belt, the Midwest, people are leaving their money. They're taking the money out of their states and putting it into the states that I mentioned. And what's interesting is Tennessee, it's no longer a sleeper state, obviously, but it's even more than Florida on a per capita basis. It's growing faster than any other state. Tennessee is. Now, Florida has more people, and it's growing, pound for pound more. But on a percentage basis, Tennessee's growing faster. Little towns you used to hear about on television shows like Hee Haw, Pigeon Forge, and Gatlinburg, and their houses there, they're over $500,000, guys. They're no longer $200,000. Airbnb is just killing it over there. Nashville, boy, if you want to have fun, go to Nashville, right? In fact, the whole state Tennessee is awesome. But in any case, so use that website. It'll help you track where money's going. And you can also use the U-Haul report because they tell you when people are renting U-Hauls, the large ones, where are they going to? It shows you where they rented it and where they're going to. So clearly you can see the movement of people, the movement of money, and the government comes out with all kinds of stats too. But any case, great logic. So going forward, is your strategy, is it twofold? Is it flipping and rentals, or is it like a combination, or you have some other strategy you're looking at going forward?
Yeah. So I still have my fix and flip business up in Michigan. I brought on a partner last April. So he's my boots on the ground. We actually just bought a house today, which is awesome. And he's my boots on the ground. So that is still the thing that pays the bills, is my fix and flip business. And then, but I only really spend about 5 hours per week on that business. We do twice a week calls, and I'm there just to answer questions. And then the rest of my time is really focused toward the multifamily. I have flipped multifamily, self storages. Actually, if I can give a gift away to your listeners, if you like, if you hopefully everyone knows what wholesaling is, but it's basically tying up a property and you're finding another buyer to pay more for it. So I gave this example. I made a website for you guys. If you go to 175kdeals.com or deal.com, so 175kdeal.com. If you go there, I do a step-by-step walkthrough of how we wholesaled a 28-unit apartment building and made $175,000. A 28-unit apartment building within 45 days of identifying the property to closing made $175,000. So the multifamily is more what I focus on now, because it's just like a bigger whale, right? Bigger fish. It's the same amount of work, right? It's like still the same renovation process and whatever, but just bigger numbers, like bigger profit margins.
Yeah. There was another website I found too. Is it 55, wasn't it? 55K. What's is that website still a place people can go and check things out?
Yeah, so another one is 55kdeal.com, 55kdeal.com. So that's for my single family fixing and flipping. So if you're interested in that, you could go there, and it's a 22-minute video I put together. This is all free, and I walk through the whole process of like identifying a property, walking through all the photos, and virtually how to estimate the renovation cost for it, and how we made $55,000 at the end. Step by step. And then inside of there too, if you want to like contact me, there's my free Facebook group. I'm in there posting constantly, and there's a link to join the free Facebook group.
Okay. Hey, a couple questions, if you don't mind, maybe somewhat a little bit random. So your dad, what he's doing is, instead of you managing the remodeling projects, he's like your GC, and he's managing. So he's not actually pounding hammers and painting. He's just managing those remodeling projects for you.
So correct. So now he did. Yeah. So he wasn't swinging hammers because he's, in the 60s now. And so we have 3 crews, and he was just go there once a week, twice a week to like check on the projects. Right. But we have our processes really dialed in. So actually he moved to Port Richey, Florida. So he's out on the ocean all day. So he's literally retired at this point. So my partner, David, who we brought on last year, he's the one who does the boots on the ground, and he's looking at projects. But we have 3 full-time crews who we worked with for many years. They're amazing. They know our process. So the secret sauce is I've McDonaldized the flipping process, so it's predictable, which makes that scalable. So in all of our houses, my secret, I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag. All of our houses look the same when we're done with them. It's the same agreeable gray paint, white shaker style cabinets, the same LVP luxury vinyl floor, the same everything. So I actually created a 350 cell spreadsheet of all the products we use at Home Depot, and we can walk through a house and within an hour or two have 90% of the materials picked out. And then go to Home Depot, we order it, and my guys know exactly what to do. So there's no change orders, there's no guesswork, no nothing. So all we really have to do is give our guys an address and come back 4 weeks later to a different house.
Yeah, I love it, man. You're doing everything right. We did something similar, and what we did is I had a lot of rentals that, like, we had a big apartment complex, for example, that had garages, and instead of just giving it to the tenants as part of the lease, as the leases renewed, we separated the garages out, and we took a couple of them for ourselves because We use the exact same paint, exact same cabinetry, exact same windows, doors, roofing, flooring, carpeting, everything. And whenever there was some kind of a deal, like we could get a supplier discount, we would just to get boatloads of that stuff and store it, and it cut our costs dramatically. It was just amazing. And it takes out the guessing work. The contractors know exactly what to do every single time. Like you said, it's like going to a McDonald's franchise. You can go to any McDonald's franchise anywhere in the country. You're going to get the exact same hamburger, and wherever you go, So for everybody listening, that is a key tip or secret, if you want to call it, to success is to standardize everything and document it. Don't Everything should be documented. I mean, we literally have, this sounds nerdy, we actually have what we call policies and procedures, like a manual. And then we have employees, and then we have all the other people that are 1099 people. Um, so, but everybody, we have that. So if there's ever any kind of a disagreement, we just click. This was it. We told you right from the beginning. There's no guesswork. There's no fudging, and it saves a lot of time, energy, and money, and disagreements and things like that. So okay, so you got that going on. Um, Now, as far as working with consumers and putting deals together, are you doing anything like that, or what's your engagement with say people listening to the podcast that are in North Carolina, they're in Florida, they're in South Carolina, or they're in Michigan, and they want to participate? Most people, unfortunately, they have a lot of fear, and it's understandable. We all do. But is there anything you have for them that you can work with them? Something they can, like the two websites. What on the websites? There's a video they can watch. Are they both the same kind of format? Videos to watch and a form to fill out and things like that?
Yeah, so yep, so they're the same format. So exactly. So if you want to learn how to fix and flip houses, inside of that 55kdeal.com website, it's like I'm walking you through exactly like how I identify the house and like even the closing paperwork, like everything that takes like step by step. So by the end of the video, you could go out confidently and say, all right, I'll show you how to estimate renovation costs. And so you can, at the end of the video, confidently go out and do it yourself. If you are looking for more help inside of my free Facebook group, I am there. I'm there answering questions. We also offer a mentorship program if you want to learn how to fix and flip houses. You can reach out to me for that. And the same thing with the other website, the 175kdeal.com. It's just a free video because I get asked like there's a funny photo of me holding this $175,000 check, like I'm making a crazy face, and everyone's like, oh, Mike, like I just kept doing one-on-one calls to answer the question, like how I did it. So I just put that into a video. So I'm like, here's a free gift for you. If you have come across an apartment building or self-storage facility, and you think it's a good deal, feel free to reach out to me. I can help work the deal with you, and make it profitable.
Okay. Now, self-storage, are you looking at that to be a growing part of your activities and portfolio going forward? Or is it just as you see them and they make good sense that you just get them in that way?
Can you repeat the question?
Is your part of your strategy going forward to make self-storage part of your portfolio, or is it more like something, hey, it just happened it was a really good deal, so you got one and you're doing it that way?
Question. So I wanted to, I've had two self-storage facilities, both for a day. And I was intending to keep them. So my first one, I was intending to add it to the portfolio, and like apartments, self-storage, kind of the same thing, how I underwrite them and how I look at them for like long-term wealth, and long-term cash flow. The first one was up in Michigan, actually in a small town, north of Lapeer. It was a 200-unit self-storage facility with a town of 3,500 people. And 80% was full, and of that 80% were paying. So it's really like 60% were full and paying. There was no website, I could see the easy value add, like put a website, signage, and do all that. I can do that. But looking at the population, And whereas that's more rural, everyone has like some land. I'm like, gosh, if like worst case scenario, something happens, they'll just throw their stuff in the backyard, put a blue tarp over it. They don't need to pay me $60 a month. So the question was, am I going to put my life savings as $1 million or $875,000? Am I going to put $875,000 into this property? And I'm like, I know I can physically turn around, but can I get it occupied? So my partners and I almost backed out of the deal. But I was like, you know what? Before we back out, there's going to be someone who wants this. There's going to be someone who is willing to take on the risk of the uncertain population and things like that. So with a little bit of marketing, again, from my single family background, we ended up finding someone to pay $1,050,000 for it. So we bought it for $850,000. So it was a $200,000 spread. After closing costs, I think, we made $180,000. So we bought it in the morning and then sold it 2 hours later for that profit.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the end here, but I have one interesting question. So back when you got your first property, when you house hacked it too, and you rented out the other 2 rooms for $300 a month, in hindsight, would you have charged $400 a month if you could do it over again per tenant?
Yeah, no. Yeah, one was, yeah. In hindsight, yeah, sure. And then I probably would have put some gas in my tank. But to be honest, I was just so thrilled that I was able to own a piece of real estate. I mean, I was living the American dream, I felt like, at 19 years old, owning a house and having it paid for. I was honestly just on cloud nine, just having that. But nowadays, I could probably charge $1,000 a bedroom. Who knows?
Yeah.
So,
Well, my roommate, by the way, my partner's his name's Socrates. He lives also in Florida. And any case, we rented out the other 2 rooms for $250 a piece. And so our net out of pocket each month was $50 a piece. And I remember we were out one night, we would water ski after work, we'd go surf, because this was like Virginia Beach. We were on the water all the time. And we looked at each other and said, what were we thinking? We could have charged them $300, they still would have paid it, and our net would have been zero, So in any case, you live and learn. And one of the lessons I learned, man, is hang on to some of that real estate. All the ones I sold, some of them I probably should have sold, but almost every the one I'm thinking, man, I should have held on to those things. I mean, look at what happened the last few years. But doing what I did allowed me to do other things, build other businesses, and so I'm having a lot more fun. Okay, so let's go back over these websites: 175kdeal.com and 55kdeal.com. So for you guys listening out here, easy to remember, easy to write down. Just remember 55, right? Speed limit. Remember 175. Okay, and K in the word deal.com, and check it out. And I'd say that's probably what Mike's been teaching you guys today applies almost anywhere in the country. I know there's exceptions, but you don't have to just be in Michigan and South Carolina to do this. So, any case, Mike, any final words of wisdom? Anything maybe your dad taught you when you were starting in the business that you want to share? As long as you don't mind sharing, something personal.
Oh yeah, no, good question. It's funny that what you said. I've heard many people say, "I wish I didn't sell," and I would say to have the long-term vision in whatever you're doing. You might get stuck in you will be in the weeds, whatever you're doing, flipping houses, selling real estate, buying rentals. But just have the long-term vision of, what it's going to be at the end, and don't be afraid to put in the day-to-day work. And so that's my tip of the day.
That's it. We call it, in the medical field, we call that being the master of delayed gratification. You go to school for 12 years before you make a dollar, but it pays off. Put the hard work in now so you can enjoy the rewards later on. If you do the halfway approach, the gray area approach, the 50-50 approach, you're just going to be working till you're an old person. So to do what Mike's doing, man. I mean, you're 30 years old now, is that right?
Yeah, 30 years old now. 30 years young. Yep.
Yeah. So there's no better time to start than right now. So take advantage of this. And by the way, when you're looking at the 2 websites, 55kdeal.com and 175kdeal.com, please go and leave a review on whatever podcast channel you're listening to. There's, again, all 30 channels. You pick the one you're on, leave a review. We certainly appreciate it. That's the gas that makes the podcast world go around. That's why we ask it all the time. And also, while you're out there, make sure you go visit globalinvestoragent.com again. And right now, I'm talking to you and agents. As you're an agent, click on the Learn More button. This is not the time to panic. It's time to prepare. And I'm telling you, once you learn the terminology and the methodology, not only can you work with people like Mike, making some pretty darn good money, you can be like Mike. Okay. I think there's a famous quote about be like Mike, right? So do that, and we'll see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. Thanks for listening, Mike. Thank you for contributing, and God bless everybody, you and your family. We'll see you on the next podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.